if you looking behind me, we got some feature art on the wall this week.
Yeah.
I definitely wanted to make certain I pay attention and kind
Talk
of show
about the
y'all
art.
this new
Talk
piece
about
of
the
art.
artwork.
Can you see the artwork?
I can see the artwork. I can
It's leaning a little bit because we had some bloopers
some
before the start of the
technical,
show.
a few technical difficulties with the set.
We did. But if you look at the piece of art, we call this shout out to Pieces of AJM. Y'all definitely need to go to her website, doing some amazing work. But if you look at this piece of art, what you see is we call it Sunday at 11.
Okay.
Uh, Sunday, if you see the words on one side, you got the white, and on the other side, you got black numbers. If you notice, the 12 and the 6 are kind of
Half and half.
black and white, half and half. And then we have the kind of the dots on it. But essentially, if you remember, Dr. King said that the most segregated part uh, of America is at 11 o'clock on Sunday, and that's kind of what this is what this is exemplifying is Sunday at 11 is probably the most segregated part of American culture.
And ain't no lie,
So
I can attest to that for real.
no, absolutely. So we want to shout out and we want to keep that piece up there. It's kind of leaning to the side right now, but we'll make it work. I just wanted to make certain I point out the new artwork.
Shout out to Pieces of AJM. What's the website again?
It is piecesofajm.com. Piecesofajm.com. You can also follow at pieces of AJM on Instagram. Uh, and then we also got our Instagram up here and our Freelunch podcast and our Twitter and my Instagram. So definitely y'all gonna see as we continue this. Want to kind of show y'all some feature pieces for the week.
Bro, you working that board like the weatherman. You getting good. That boy
Oh,
good.
absolutely, absolutely,
You
absolutely.
guys
So
say,
I
go ahead.
no, absolutely. I apologize for stopping you in mid stride, but I wanted to make sure that we at least acknowledge the artwork behind us. I think last week or a few weeks ago we showed y'all this piece here, which I thought was amazing. So we just
Yeah.
want to take an opportunity to shout that out.
You out this
All
boy,
right.
boy, you doing the right thing. Y'all support black artists, black creators do matter. Pieces of AJM. You got some artwork on your shirt that you was adding a bit about showing. What is that you got on your shirt? Since you always be on
Oh man.
what I got.
Oh, absolutely. I'm a had a camera go down a little bit. That's Rafiki. That's my spirit animal right there. My favorite Disney character. Uh, I think Rafiki is the most. It's probably Disney's greatest character ever created. So definitely gonna rock the Rafiki shirt today in honor of Rafiki, Disney, Lion King, etc.
Y'all make sure y'all give Tyson feedback on that shirt. Tell him what you think. We've been talking about how tough it is being a black man in America, especially right now. We gotta boycott everything. You get judged if you choose to listen to a certain artist on the radio, certain watch a certain show, support a certain figure, and we even talked about how hard it was to even decide on where you wanted to eat, and we based that off of how Waffle House was one of the restaurants that just kept showing up week after week about incidents going down, people getting the police called on them, getting roughed up by the folks at the restaurant. And we know where we from, Waffle House was a late night spot. You leave the club 1, 2 o'clock in the morning. You could always count on Waffle House being open, going there and get some of that greasy food, right? Something to soak up that alcohol. But Waffle House has become a very dangerous place. I don't think I've been to Waffle House in the last year. And last week, a couple I think it was in Florida, went into
Yes,
the
that was
Waffle
Florida.
House. He went into the Waffle House, and they ended up having their night turned around as the cashier called the police on them. And the reason, in reading the story, the reason that the police were called is because there was some discrepancy in their bill. They went in and the orange juice, they got charged $1.50 for the orange juice. And I think they were expecting the orange juice to be maybe $1 or something like that.
Well, I think they was charged. an extra $1.50. I
on
think that
top
on
of
yeah, on top of. So I think they got overcharged a dollar and
a
fifty
whole dollar and
cents.
50 cents. Okay.
Mhm.
Well, at any rate, if you get something
Mhm.
on your bill that show up wrong, especially if you like my girl, you gonna get called on. Like we gonna find out where this charge come from. We gonna get that straight. But they try to get it straight, and the cashier, I guess, felt threatened or whatnot, and called the police on them. And like you always say, when that happen, when that call go in, you don't know what the hell you finna get. Like your night can be turned upside down. So ultimately, the police got there. The couple was just trying to explain, how this whole thing started, and police wasn't really trying to have it. And they put the man in handcuffs, and then went ahead and put his significant other in handcuffs in the police car. I haven't followed up on it to see if there have been any like charges that they faced, but just to go to jail over getting overcharged for something is another instance of just how tough it is, man. How you always got to be on guard for this type of shit happening.
So for the articles that I read, they were not charged. They were released and allowed to essentially pay their bill. Video is very disturbing, and it's as disturbing as what I saw with the Milwaukee Bucks player. And the reason why I say that is because I feel like in this incident, even though Mr. Copeland, Donald Copeland, and Mrs. Hart, um, to me, they were being cooperative and they were doing everything right. You would think that the police officers would arrive willing to hear both sides of the
Yeah,
story.
yeah,
And you mentioned it earlier, but they essentially arrived and their immediate action was to detain and arrest um, the Mr. Copeland and Miss Hart, and that's disturbing, and that's why even in previous conversations that we've had, I've always mentioned that if there's a situation I'm involved in, I definitely do not want to call 911 because you don't know what type of you don't know which officer is going to be dispatched. You don't know the mood he's in. You don't even understand uh, what has been said by the employee.
right.
I felt like the Waffle House employee escalated an issue that probably should not have been escalated. And that's my concern from watching the body cam of the police officer. Even as in this incident, I felt like this gentleman. I felt like he wasn't threatening, and that's because I've interacted with other black males. So I felt like he was dramatic. Um, I've seen Mr. Copeland types, and he was just dramatic at the situation. He was overcome by the situation and what was happening. I felt like the police officers um, felt threatening because he was just passionate. And when I say dramatic, I'm just saying he was very passionate about his innocence. By no means was he attempting to run. Was he attempting to escape? He was only trying to explain his situation, and for the police officer to essentially say, "We're going to detain you for theft." I think that's pretty extreme. And then when they were putting him into the police car, the guy was essentially he's tall, he's trying to fit into a vehicle into the back seat of a vehicle that just isn't ideal for him. And the officer wanted to uh, kind of show his authority and trying to flex his muscles, so to speak, and essentially was like, either get in, I'm gonna put you in.
Yeah,
And when you around those type of individuals, it's
it's
hard
a
to even
no. It's a
communicate
no
or
win.
talk. It's a no win
It's a no win
situation.
situation. Man, can't even get in the base. He got his hands handcuffed behind him. He's a pretty nice side guy, and you trying to get in the back seat of this small car, and they just taking it up a notch, really trying to flex and show them force.
Do you think that the Waffle House at this point should follow suit? Um, what is it about the Waffle House and their employees here recently calling the police, and is there anything that they can do to essentially change their brand?
I think, of course, just from a PR standpoint, if I'm the head of it, if I'm the head of press and marketing and stuff like that, yeah, you got to say we closing down the whole day for cultural diversity and all these things. You got to do that from a superficial standpoint. But I think at the end of the day, the employees in these particular establishments are representatives of the people that live in that place. I think this was in Fort Walton Beach, somewhere like that. I think it was like 40 miles away from Pensacola. If you know that area, it's pretty much, if I had to liken it to some, it's probably more Trump type supporters down in that area than it would be in, let's just say, a more diverse place in Atlanta. Because you know there's several Waffle Houses in Atlanta that people go to. They go and spend their money. They come out of the club and shit go down at the club. But it ain't, I mean, at the Waffle House, after these places. But you very seldom hear these type of stories. Like, I was at a Waffle House one time and the all-out brawl broke loose. And they cleared the brawl out and the restaurant kept rolling. So I think it's what you were talking about is just these people being around and their own biases and perspectives. They just happen to be employees. So your bias, unfortunately, don't stop once you come into your work every day and you got to deal with all these different people. If you racist or if you feel intimidated by the way a certain person looks in a moment like this where there is a discrepancy and you really need to be kind of communicating and finding middle ground, you ain't going to be able to do it because your bias is going to take over and you're going to feel threatened. You're going to feel like they trying to get over or they're trying to rob you or something like that. And then you call the police frantically, and okay, the police are more representations of that particular area. So now they coming in thinking it's a black man and a black woman trying to steal a meal from the Waffle House. It's a problem. So from a PR standpoint, the company should get on the front end of this to try to protect their brand across the nation, or if they're global, across the globe. But I mean, as far as like true change, it's gonna be hard because of the individual. You can't micromanage every individual under your company umbrella.